Hello and welcome to the Can We Have Your Attention podcast with myself, James Wickham, and with Claire Coady. Hello, Claire.
Hello, James.
Hello. And this week we are going to talk about the big orange thing on the horizon. Not the sun. Donald. Yes. So we're going to talk about Donald, and we're going to talk, it's not going to be a fully newsy episode, so don't worry if you're looking for this podcast for some reason to have a bit of a break from everything that's going on in the news, but it's obviously news reflective. So what we're going to do is talk a bit about the way that Donald Trump has got to power and how he's using it and what he's doing with it, and then that will bring us all on in the future to stan culture and so on. But shall we just start with Donald himself then, Claire? So this is the second time round, but there's slightly different tactics at play.
There are definitely different tactics at play. It is definitely very different this time round. And I think it's come as a bit of a shock to people outside of the US. And we're sat in the UK right now, who are looking at Trump and expecting Trump won and are getting a wildly different thing, right? It's almost like dealing with a different person to a degree.
But I mean, surely it's a bit of a surprise for people, if they were expecting Trump won, because the campaign wasn't Trump won, was it? It wasn't exactly the same. I mean, he has been far more outspoken than he was previously.
No, but it was a campaign run in a different era, right? So that campaign and the way that he came to power came at a time when algorithms were first been invented, and you didn't have the sort of super granular, totally individual and totally unique algorithms that you have today, right? And as a result, you still had mass culture. So although you might not have been shown the exact things that someone who was, a supporter of Trump or in the early MAGA movement would have been shown, you probably knew what they were being shown, or you probably were able to see it because those worlds weren't so wildly far apart, whereas now it's completely far apart. There are people, of course, who work not just in the UK, in Europe, all over the world, in different jobs, whether you're working in the C-suite of a large multinational corporation, or whether you are working as a diplomat or a foreign policy expert, or you're working, or you're working in the military, and you have contact with the US, you have more contact with the US, and that is part of your daily working life. And your experience of dealing with your counterparts in the US definitely shapes your view of what is possible and what you expect and what you don't. And to say that they're shocked is an understatement, I think.
Right. Which I suppose to a certain degree, I mean, what we're here for is not really to talk about the policy, but to talk about the attention being placed upon it, or the way that he's garnered the attention for what he's doing. But surely it is, I hesitate to use the term intellectually lazy of people, but surely, well, is there not an argument, though, that we've been shown, he's advertised what he's going to do, the approach he's taken. And if people aren't willing to, reversion the way that they do work to compensate for that, to at least understand that we're not in the same order we were before, then surely that's on them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think there's a lot to unpack here. So the kind of people that I'm thinking of, which like diplomats and foreign policy experts, the kind of people who work at Chatham House, they will bristle at the idea that they are intellectually lazy. So well, for the record, I mean, you're not intellectually lazy. Sorry, I'm just diving.
No, I mean, look, I think the point I'm trying to make, though, and hey, my job in this is to play devil's advocate,
completely right.
But I think the point I'm trying to make is, if you are playing to an order which has been around for 100 and God knows how many years, somebody comes along, and he's the most powerful man in the world, and so on, and he's playing to a completely new rule book, you can't treat him as though he's still part of the old order, right? Well, and I just see a lot of people in not just diplomacy circles, but in media circles and in all ways, who just haven't caught up, it seems to me, with the new way things are being done.
So I think there's a couple things to say. So first, when we talk about the order, we're talking about the rules-based international order, right? So that is a technical term that encompasses a few things. So laws, treaties, institutions like the UN, the world, and subsequent and its other organizations. NATO is part of that. And then norms. That slippery word, norms. And that governs the way that countries basically interact with each other. So that system in the United States is backing, not just backing of it, but like the foundational support it gives it to hold it together,
Yeah.
is so strong that ultimately, when you're working with other countries to achieve your aims and the aims of your people as as the representative of an elective or not body, you're working within that system, or you're trying to tactically manipulate the system to your advantage, but you do not have the strength to break it unless you are the United States. But I think for good reason, nobody thought the U.S. would even attempt to do that. Like, you might say, similar to the arguments we had around Brexit, right? That, come on, like, you benefit too much from this, United Kingdom, to do this. The United States, you benefit too much from this. Your country has benefited too much from this for you to entirely blow it to smithereens. But I think that was an underestimation of how much Trump actually cares maybe about the United States at all. It's not necessarily the things he's asking for, though that's shocking, right? But like almost every world leader has asked for something that's at least moderately surprising. And there are plenty of leaders that have done or said shocking things in that establishment. Putin being a good example of that, but still working within the system or on the edges of the system, manipulating the system in order to achieve it. Trump, he's just blowing it up because it's a forum for him to reinforce his image and his credibility in the United States.
So, he's trying to act as this strongman, essentially, isn't he? So how is he doing that?
You've already given one really good domestic example of that, right? Like using ICE in this instance to conduct immigration raids, right? Like that sends whether they're effective or not is one thing. I think that's something time will tell. But it certainly sent a very strong visual message to Americans about how strong he is and how much power he's able to exert. He's also tried to add elements to reinforce that, right? Like he's tried to call up state militias or mobilize state militias to support ICE. The Supreme Court rejected his attempt to do that in Illinois, but that's why ICE has done that. Now going to the world stage, we can see one thing that he's done already, which is the way that Maduro was captured in Venezuela, right?
It's entertainment.
It was entertainment. It was completely theatrical. It was, genuinely shocking, but deliberately so, right? Because shocking doesn't just get attention; it gets results. It gets promoted. It sends a really strong signal to the American people of what he can do. I think the reaction to that, I think there's probably a number of commentators who have said this, seems to have buoyed him a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So the way he's now conducting himself as a reflection of that, forcefulness that the government represented by him engaged with that, right? So sharing screenshots of signal messages sent to him by world leaders. So by Macron, by Mark Rutte, by others who were trying to set up basically diplomatic efforts to talk to him about, and in this case it's Greenland, but this will not be the last time he does this, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think, was a genuine shock to people.
So were they shocked at the mere fact he would share the messages?
Yeah. I think the fact that he would share the messages was a shock, right? Like it's a violation of a norm. Like right. He's already made violations of that, right? Like the other strongman thing that he's done is the Oval Office. Right?
Yeah.
Normally what would happen in the past, like even under Trump 1, is when a world leader would come visit, they have like a meet and greet, and literally they shake hands, pose for the camera, and then go behind closed doors and conduct negotiations, right? There have been multiple examples where he's conducted the initial discussions in front of the cameras and set up the points, like on WWE, where you have like what is it, like where they're talking smack to each other before they get in the ring.
Yeah.
So he's saying to the American people, this is a wrestling match, right? Where I'm going to fight and dominate and win on your behalf, and I'm showing you that I'm going to do that in this promo.
But why is it, Claire, then, that you think people are attracted to vote for somebody like this? What is it about that strongman image that really, makes people go, okay, this is what I want?
Why do people vote for strongman? The subject of 8,000 PhD theses.
Yeah.
Because they're suffering, right?
Yep.
because they feel hopeless. And they also feel like nobody's hearing that hopelessness.
Because, of course, there's the argument, isn't there? And the same thing with kind of Farage in the UK,
Oh, yeah.
that, they're trying to create this us and them mentality. But actually, they're not really part of the us, they're part of the them, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. But then people see them as being on their side.
They, in this case, establishment, media, and politicians, traditional politicians, CEOs, seem to either be afraid or hate him, right? He's clearly not one of them, even if on paper he looks like he should be. And then there's other things that he does to signal that too, right? The same as Farage, right? So Farage signals that by actually I think his accent and his voice is very different from people who are in the establishment, right? Like, to me, he doesn't talk or look like a conservative politician. I know he was once, wanted to be one, but he doesn't. He looks like the kind of person who set up a successful accounting business in a part of the country, did pretty well out of it, maybe bought a couple of McDonald's franchises, did really well out of that, and then now he's got money and clout to say something, and that's really dangerous. That's really seductive, because he doesn't look like one of them. Because if you think about politicians let's say in the traditional sense, right? Like, let's think about Rishi Sunak, right?
Yeah.
Or let's think about William Hague, someone extremely well educated who moved to London. Farage doesn't look like that. He doesn't sound like that. From Trump, everyone's like New Yorker, billionaire, daddy's boy, the strong man who I've never seen lift a weight.
Yeah. But actually, the image is crucial, isn't it? That image thing is absolutely massive, because he doesn't look like a politician.
Yeah.
And, you could say the same thing to a degree about Farage. You could say the same thing about, Boris Johnson. It would be another example in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to reference a TV show. I don't know if you've seen The Gilded Age.
No, I haven't.
Of course you haven't, because it's a box set. Sorry. Forgive me, James.
Don't watch them.
Forgive me, James. So I'm watching. I was watching it, at the end of last year, and it really struck me. One of the main characters in it, he's based on the Vanderbilts, right? Who, if anyone doesn't know, basically robber barons at the end of the 19th century in the U.S. So it's hard for us to think of the Vanderbilts and think that they were actually upstarts, right? Like, they were ostracized from New York society, but they were. And the Gilded Age, the patriarch of the family, that's like effectively ostracized, but is so powerful and moneyed, is someone who is basically being rejected by the society, and then he uses his power, and his wife uses her power to strong-arm them and push them out. And that's what Trump is, right? Like, and you're rooting for him. You want this, like in the Gilded Age, you want this character to win. That's it. That's Trump's appeal, right? Like, because he could be part of that establishment for some reason. They don't like him. Discuss.
Yeah. But that's
he's rejected by them. Well,
yeah.
We've been rejected by them too. No one cares about us. So he's someone powerful enough to represent our interests, and he will fight for our interests. He knows how we feel.
Sure. But that look thing, the image thing, which is all so important and crucial, right? I mean, it's a very male thing, isn't it? In that you have the slightly odd look of, in one way or another, right? For either Boris's hair, or Donald being orange, or, I suppose Milei in Argentina being, having this massive hair, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always something.
Yeah.
There aren't many women in this position, are there? You might look at Meloni in Italy, for example. You might look at Maggie Thatcher in the UK as having cultivated an image, but it's a very different kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, completely. So Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, in fact, most or maybe all strongman politicians, they don't look super suave because something looks off, right? Something is wrong. Boris Johnson was a perfect example of this. His hair, that man could have brushed his hair, right? Like, he definitely could have. He deliberately chose not to. He had it deliberately styled that way.
Yeah.
Like, because it made him seem more accessible, to use a marketing and brand term, right? Like, people felt like he would more likely understand their needs and their problems. He was more likely to, what he said was the truth, because he didn't have that slick salesman veneer, right? Same with Trump. Trump is a salesman. Trump is a salesman who wears a suit that's far too big, cut too wrong, ties too long, face too orange, tan's gone wrong. He looks like he gets his hair cut at Supercuts. Like, in no world is he going to be the star of a film, although famously Home Alone 2. Not the star, though. We forget that. But he's certainly someone that people then think he's trustworthy because it seems snobbish to criticize his dress, right? Because, the kind of people who feel like he represents them are people who do feel out of place when they go into nice restaurants. They are the people who might avoid that because they feel like they're going to be judged. They feel like they're not measuring up. And they can see this person who has all the money in the world who can do this, who's facing the same things and think, yeah, he understands a little bit of me, right?
Yeah. So would we ever get a strong woman then in the same way?
Strong women, they tend to be like matriarch types, right? So often they're not in power. They're often like behind the scenes. And there's something that scares people a little bit of them. Like they're your Cersei Lannisters, right? Until she did take power. Until she eventually, Cersei Lannister is your strong woman, right? She's got a lot in common with Georgia Maloney.
Okay.
Even visually she does, right?
Yeah.
And Margaret Thatcher, from like, it's hard to look at pictures of her and show pictures of her to people who are 20 or 30 years old now and get them to understand that this was someone who was both projecting a feminine ideal and at the same time talking about strength. And she was very open and very explicit about the fact that she had to balance those two things, right? I think it's very rare. And I think it's also telling that when we think of strong women politicians, there's no like far left strong female leaders, right? They're all far right. The other challenge that I think they face is that, and this might be why you tend to see them coming more out of conservative movements, is that, when you're a female politician, you have to toe the line between being seen to be strong enough to lead, but not so strong that you threaten the men who we rely on for support. And so often, at least in my mind, the kind of people we're talking about, Georgia Maloney, Margaret Thatcher, there's a degree where they are strong through the eyes of men who don't want to be threatened by them. You are ultimately appealing to the male gaze, to being supported by men, and you have to present yourself that way. That's much harder for women on the left to do.
When it comes to trying to develop those images and spread them more widely, how does that work? Are we talking about using algorithms to their best extent in this modern age that we have now?
So the first thing I'd say is I don't think anyone, aside from Brad Parscale, who ran Trump's 2016 campaign, has deliberately thought of algorithms in advance for how to advance a political campaign, right? It's sort of by accident, and then everyone copies it until it starts failing, right? So that when Obama ran in 2008, algorithms didn't exist, really. And what they were doing was effectively, community engagement, which is something Obama could do really well, but doing it online. And that's how that grew. But that became the playbook for a number of different political candidates all over the world, right? Like, some of Obama's campaign team then went on to find Blue State Digital, and Blue State Digital, like Linton Crosby's Crosby Texter Group, became a political consultancy for a number of campaigns and issues worldwide, right? Very different client base, I'm going to stress, for Blue State Digital than it was for Crosby Texter.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But, that's...
Yeah, Linton Crosby advised the Conservative Party.
Yes, he did. And before that, the Australian Conservatives as well. So Linton Crosby's first UK campaign was Boris Johnson's mayoral campaign in 2008. But as you're starting to run campaigns more, and remember, they have shoestring budgets largely, right? In most countries, there are limits on how much you can donate to a political campaign and who can donate, including in the US. To a degree, super PACs are where we get problems. But even then, like most of your political campaigns for an individual in particular, as they're getting power, you have absolutely nothing money. But what you do have is the ability to get unpaid for attention, right? Including on, money can't buy spots on the news, right? Like, so
yeah.
Working in the UK, working in advertising, we know that if you manage to get your brand talked about ever on the BBC, or your campaign talked about ever on the BBC, that is money can't buy, right? That's worth millions of dollars in advertising because the credibility was so strong. How hard you'd have to work to get there is, politicians have that every night, right? Especially if you're the leader of a political party, you have money can't buy access to people's attention so long as you earn your way onto that agenda. And the things you need to say and do now to earn your way onto it are much, much different to what they were 20 years ago.
I mean, look, we should do an episode at some point about exactly how people get on the news, because I think...
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to you, sorry.
Right?
But, right.
That is fascinating in itself. I think I'll need to find the right guest to do that with, because it'll be a good chat.
I'd love to get like a political strategist on this, because just, by the way, like I've never worked on a political campaign. This is all like observation and talking. I did write a paper a couple of years ago on where I talked to political strategists about how they run campaigns and the difference between that and brands, like what you can learn from each other. So what you have to do to get attention. There's always been that, that impetus. But what has changed in the last 10 years has been one, the rise of algorithms, right? And going back to the conversation we had about algorithms last week, particularly for Meta. Right. Meta's promise is built on the fact that advertisers can granularly target people, like you only reaching the people who matter most to your product. But the way they've had to deliver that promise over time is to basically create an algorithm they don't understand. They have no idea what's in it, and they don't really know how it works, but it has said, you can identify the people who are most interested in your product and are closest to buying it. What that's meant is you have people's algorithms are like the algorithm that they're exposed to when they use the product is fundamentally different every time. And that's how we've gotten not just echo chambers, but these, incredibly strong subcultures on the internet. Now, politics and political campaigning has always been a mass game, but I think what Trump's people wittingly or unwittingly understand is one, these algorithms are geared towards the United States, right? Because that's the biggest advertising market in the world by far and away.
Yeah.
Number two is that what you need to do to get publicity is to look noisy online. And the noisiest people are the people who are the most rabid about something. And this is where stan culture comes in. Algorithms, in the way that they've been tweaked and designed, because they're not just segmenting down and down and down into this granular thing they can't even understand, but also it's looking for engagement signals. And the people who are most engaged online are the people who are stans.
Let's talk about stans. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, I mean, I know what it means, and I know it comes from Eminem's Stan, featuring Dido, of course. But I don't get the link. What is it?
So Stan, the song itself by Eminem, was about a fan who was so obsessed that he, spoiler alert, for the 4-minute song, he takes his own life at the end of the song, right? And you're following the song through the letters that this fan wrote to Eminem, which are getting progressively more intense and violent over time. That word, Stan, has now been used, or has been co-opted, to describe a kind of internet fandom in which people who are fans of a particular thing, whether it's a K-pop group or heated rivalry, take it to the extreme, to the point where they feel like they have to defend, or they will defend that personality at all costs, no matter what they've done. Or they will support it as well. So they're, generally actually within the communities themselves, they're supportive of each other as like this collective tribe of people who like this person or this individual or this artist or whatever it is you're doing, and will defend them to the death. Yeah.
So that's what you're seeing with, say, the MAGA community, right?
Yeah. It's certainly, anyone can become a stan of anything, right? But one of the interesting things, I think, is because people who are stans, who are really into something, tend to be really engaged in it, right? And engaged meaning that they're spending more time on the particular forums or places where they're meeting the people able to do that. They're sharing more things, which is another signal the algorithms look for. They're saving more things, another signal the algorithms are looking for. And then they're liking creating content, another signal the algorithms are looking for. I think the way that the algorithms have been constructed has, whether intentionally or not, created a culture where stan culture, or standing for anything, stands out, right? And is supported. And then also can generate that in people too, right? Like, so we've been talking a lot about the NFL and how, why is it this year that, I'm now a, rabid NFL fan, or not just a rabid, but like I'm back in the Bears, right? It can't just be because they're doing well, because they were doing really well in 2010 and I was not like this. My own social media algorithms fed me NFL and Bears content until I became the kind of person, and I remember sending, I didn't just send this message to you, I sent it to another friend as well, where I wished the Green Bay Packers coach a really violent Wisconsin-based death. I think I said I wanted to run over by a pontoon boat.
Which I thought was a particularly interesting form of... I thought you'd been reading a lot of Agatha Christie, to be honest with you. But...
I mean, I do read a lot of Agatha Christie. So yeah, the algorithms don't just respond to this; they can create it as well. And I think that we're seeing that a bit with MAGA. But what it's created is that Trump's base are stands, right? Like they're stands.
Yeah.
They are supporting him to the death because he represents something to them. And really that something is challenging the entire system that they feel holds them back. So when, Trump projects power, when he has world leaders sending him groveling text messages, like absolutely simpering. Oh, they're simps. Yeah. Another fun word. This is something that is not just valuable to him, but speaks to that culture. He's showing them what their work did, right?
For me, this shows that the way in which we consume media has changed so fundamentally because you now have a situation where the algorithms are super serving a particular community and indeed pushing them further down that road. Yeah. Whereas previously your traditional broadcasters had to show a much wider scope of views, opinions and so on, simply because that's what they had to do in order to serve everybody or were indeed regulated to.
Yeah, but, he understands this culture, probably implicitly understands it, or he understands that it's gotten them there. He understands what speaks to them. And as a result, that's also dictating the news and how you operate. I think this is going to fundamentally change, or should fundamentally change, how then world leaders respond to this, right? Because they are now in the very latest version of the Kendrick Lamar Drake battle, right?
Right.
That's what this is. He started it. Don't be Drake.
Basically, what you're saying is you've got people playing to two completely different sets of rules here.
Yeah.
You've got the old order and the new order.
Yeah, you've got one person being Kendrick Lamar Drake, and you've got, a lot of other people who are still arguing over Bretton Woods, right? Not literally arguing over Bretton Woods, but you get what I mean, right? Like they're still operating in a world where stuff happens behind closed doors. And that stuff often does look like, the kinds of things that we'd see out in the open. It's just he's determined to bring this into the open because it shows how much power he has. The fact that he can get world leaders to send him simpering messages that they appear in the Oval Office and they have fights like that serves Trump's entertainment brand, and it's not going to go away. It's going to get worse. So I think if you're a world leader at the moment, you probably need to be looking not at how you would typically conduct things and what move do you do next? What gift do you give him next? What person do you give him next? But actually look at Kendrick Lamar, look at K-pop, look at these big personality-based entertainment fights and think about, how do you conduct yourself? What are the things you do to make sure you have leverage in these fights? Because it's not going to be the same.
All of which brings us back round to the idea of a certain set of people being stuck in the past or indeed intellectually late. I'm not going to say it again. Well, leave it there.
They think they're above it, right? They think that, that's not serious. They think pop culture isn't serious and this is serious business because it has serious implications. They're not wrong, right? Like the stuff that Trump is using for entertainment govern our lives, right? It's our safety. It's our ability to prosper. It's our ability to work and feel like we can go to sleep soundly, right? Like this is what he's playing with, and he's playing it like it's an entertainment game. He's already taken it there, right? I think if you're in the middle of that argument, he's already taken it there, and he's going to keep winning because that's how media functions, right? That's how media functions. That's how these political bases functions. He will continue to get rewarded for that, and he will continue to project power, and you will be left behind. So what you need to do to keep up with that is rethink the way you think about this, right? That you need to make sure your message is effective, right? And the way your message is going to be effective is by playing the game he's already brought you into, and that game is entertainment. The issue is serious. That doesn't mean you conduct yourself in the way you have before because you think that serious things warrant a certain kind of way of speaking. The issue is serious enough. Think about the impact. He's dragged you into this game. You got to play it. And you got to look at entertainment and figure out, how do you make yourself more entertaining? Macron's kind of on his way there. He's already helping you get there. So what's he doing? Follow him, but do it in a way that's entertaining and not just super French.
I mean, I like doing things in a way that's super French anyway. Bring on more berets. That's what I say.
Oui.
Claire, thank you. A pleasure. Do get in touch with us at any time.
Thank you.
Can we have your attention protonmail.com is the email address. I do welcome messages telling me that I'm being very, very annoying towards the diplomatic community. I apologise. It's just my job.
James is very... No, I apologise on his behalf.
Yeah, that's fine. Claire, a pleasure. Thanks so much.